Hello and welcome to France 24's daily culture show, Arts 24. Today, the writer of one of the most risky novels to ever win the Booker Prize.
The winner of the 2025 Booker Prize is Flesh.
Irish writer Roddy Doyle there announcing British-Hungarian author David Szalay as winner of one of literature's most coveted prizes with a book about masculinity in crisis. David is in Paris as his book Flesh is being published in French by Albin Michel. Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, congratulations. This is your sixth book. You were previously shortlisted for the Booker in 2016 with your novel All That Man Is. How does it feel to actually win this time? And has it finally sunk in now?
Yes, I guess it is starting to sink in. I mean, the actual moment that you just showed there, which I haven't seen myself since the day it happened, so it's almost strange to see it now, was a sort of out-of-body, surreal moment, I guess, and it did take a while to sink in. But yeah, I mean, now it has begun to sink in, and it's great.
Well, Flesh follows István from a bleak Hungarian housing estate to London, where he enters the world of the super rich. But this isn't a feel-good rags to riches story. István is passive, he's inarticulate, he's often violent, but yet we care so much about him and we really can't stop reading. Let's have a look now at the moment you accepted the honour in London for this prize.
I felt Flesh is quite a risky novel, a risky book. It felt risky to me writing it. And I remember Hannah Weston, my editor at Jonathan Cape in London, when we were talking about the title of the book, maybe a year ago, wondering aloud whether she could imagine a novel called Flesh winning the Booker Prize.
Well, win it did, David. Tell us about this title then. Why is it called Flesh?
Well, I think the book is, the sort of perspective the book takes on life is a physical experience. Life as a physical experience, not only as a physical experience, but first of all as a physical experience. And of course, the title sort of points to that, I think. We did feel it was a bit of a risky title for a novel of this kind. It has an almost sort of vulgar overtone, as it feels sort of slightly tawdry, a bit rough. It made people uneasy, the idea of publishing a book under that title in the publishing house. But in the end, we decided that all of those things were actually sort of good things.
Yeah, no, they are.
That they all reflected something true in the book, and that it was a title that people would remember. It was a title with impact, and it was a title that spoke to something important in the book.
And István, he is one of the most silent protagonists in recent fiction. I didn't actually notice this, but I read that apparently he says okay something like 500 times.
More like 400.
400
but I
times.
take your point.
Hundreds of times throughout the book. How did you make readers invest so much in this character when he doesn't even speak?
Well, I think it can be exaggerated quite how little he speaks. I mean, he does actually speak. I think as the protagonist of a literary novel, he is unusually inarticulate. That's certainly true. And he doesn't explain himself to the reader. He doesn't verbally tell the reader in any way what they should think of him, how they should react to him, or indeed what he thinks of himself. But the reader spends so much of István's life with him in the course of reading this book, I think, which takes place over decades of his life. And they have they share so much sort of intimate experience with him and so much emotional experience, I think we can say, that by the end, I hope that they do feel some deep sympathy for him.
Yeah, well, we do. And it's actually quite sad when the book finishes. We want to carry on with him. It opens when he's 15. It does span his life, as you said. He's being seduced by his 40-something neighbour, same age as his mum. It is a shocking beginning. Was this always going to be the start for you? Yes.
I mean, I wrote that chapter before any of the other parts of the book. I mean, that was the first bit that I wrote. And actually, when I wrote that, I wasn't quite sure where the book was going to go, or even at that point, what sort of book it was going to be. But I did feel that this was a very strong first chapter for a book, that it was a first chapter that would really take strong hold of a reader, and it would be difficult for a reader not to go on with the book after reading that chapter. So yes, that impact of it, that sort of almost shocking quality of it, was important, I think. Yeah.
And every year, the Booker Prize organisers ask well-known people to do readings of the shortlisted novels. Let's listen then to an extract read by the rapper Stormzy. Now, this comes just after The Neighbour has decided to end the relationship with István.
After only a few days, it's unbearable not to see her at all. Not to know where she is or what she's doing. Even her hatred and anger would be preferable to that, is what he feels. And it's with that feeling that he knocks on the door of her flat one evening. He isn't sure exactly why he's doing it or what he will say. He has to knock for quite a long time. Finally, her husband opens the door. "What is it?" he says. "Is she there?" István asks him. "What?
Is she there?
What are you talking about?" her husband says.
Is she?
"No," her husband says, already shutting the door.
So there you go, Stormzy reading from the opening, or near the opening of the novel. I know Dua Lipa as well is a big fan of the book. You were actually on her book
That's right, yeah.
podcast.
Yeah.
What's it like having two of Britain's biggest music stars honour your book?
It's nice. What can I say? It's great. I mean, it was fantastic and slightly surreal to be on Dua's book club. This was in September, actually. This was before even the Booker shortlist had been announced. So yeah, that was great. That was great, and it's just wonderful that someone like her has a book club at all, actually, and puts this effort into. I mean, she loves books and she wants to share that, and she's in a position to share that very effectively and to bring reading and books, and particular books, to the attention of a very wide audience.
Yeah, it must
wonderful.
do wonders for the sales as well,
Absolutely,
I'm guessing. Well, talking about the themes of the book, you said you wanted to write about a primitive form of masculinity. That is a provocative phrase. What do you mean by it? And is this novel ultimately a defence of masculinity or a critique of masculinity?
I mean, the phrase primitive form of masculinity is actually used, it's spoken by one of the other characters in the book. And I think, what I found interesting about that was that I don't really know myself whether István exemplifies a primitive form of masculinity, which is what this other character says about him. In some ways, it seems he does. In other ways, it's not so easy to say that. I think he's a complex character, both in terms of masculinity and in other terms as well. So, yeah, while the book is about masculinity to some extent, I think that's not the only thing it's about. I think that it has sort of wider interests than that too.
It certainly does. There are women in the novel, several of them. They're hardly moral models of virtue either. Helen, for example, offers István oral sex while her husband is dying in hospital. Were you deliberately trying to provoke readers, or especially women, with that part?
Well, to sort of refer to that part in isolation probably does a slight disservice to the character of Helen. It makes her sound more reprehensible than I hope she really is. The funny thing about that particular part, actually, is that I did wonder about whether that should stay in the book or whether that should perhaps be cut. And so I consulted my editor, and in fact, one of the editors who was working on the book, who was a man, sort of shared that doubt about that. So we consulted together the editor of the book, my editor at Cape in London, Hannah Westland, and she was adamant that it should stay. So we then left it in, and I'm glad we left it in. I think the book does contain sort of morally difficult things like that. And when in the Booker acceptance speech that we saw a bit of there, I talked about the moral risks that the book took as well. And I think it does take moral risks of that kind. But ultimately, I think all the characters in the book are sympathetic on a human level.
And this is a novel as well about contemporary Europe, Brexit, migration, the end of communism, Hungary joining the EU. Do you see yourself as a European novelist now, writing about the forces reshaping our continent?
Yes, I think so. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what a European novelist is, whether such a thing even exists. I mean, I hope so, because I feel that would be quite a comfortable thing for me to be, given the sort of books that I write. So, yes, I think this book is about Europe, and some of my previous books are also about contemporary Europe, and that's something I'm very interested in writing about.
We are out of time, but just quickly, are you working on another book?
Yes, I am. This Flesh was finished about 2 years ago, so I have begun something else since then.
And I'm guessing you can't tell us anything about it.
No.
Okay, well, we always end our shows with our guests' cultural pick of the moment. What have you chosen for us?
Well, at the moment at the Kunsthistorische Museum in Vienna, where I live, is an exhibition devoted to the 17th century painter Michelina Wattier, a female painter unusually for that period. And there's one particular painting of hers, which is actually part of the permanent exhibition there, which I've seen many times, called The Triumph of Bacchus. And I find this a very fascinating painting. Not only is it by a woman, which is in itself unusual, but she includes in the painting a self-portrait in which she's sort of semi-naked, and in the context of a male figure sort of holding her by the neck and looking at her with sort of what you might call a kind of savage lust. And I remember the first time I saw this painting, before I knew it was painted by a woman, I was immediately struck by this, and by the way that she paints her own female body, which is so very different from the typical depiction of the female body in that period by painters such as Rubens and stuff. I was just fascinated by it from the first time I saw it, and it was great to see a whole exhibition devoted to her.
It all comes back to flesh in the end.
Well, quite, yes.
David Szalay, it's been a pleasure to have you on the programme.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Pleasure
for being
to
here. We're going to leave you now with that exhibition, Michelina Wattier at the Kunsthistorische Museum in Vienna. David Szalay's book, Flesh, or Share in French, is available now. Thanks for watching. See you next time.